I'm so glad that we are talking about a topic that is very relevant for you as a seller. Compliance, selling here at Amazon with compliance. And for that, we have Somie Rico that is going to explain a little bit of what she does and what the programs that they have. So Somie, thank you so much for coming over here. Probably our first question is like, what you've done before Amazon, how you got to that, and what do you do at Amazon?
Sure. Thank you for having me, first of all. It's great to sit down and speak with you today. Yeah, to tell you a little bit about my background, before Amazon, I actually worked in the healthcare industry. So I worked in healthcare administration as a program manager, and my focus was on health equity and patient experience. And then about 2 years ago, my path led me to Amazon. And so I'm on a team now that focuses on how we can develop tools and resources to try and streamline the experience for our sellers. And so it's definitely been a very big change going from healthcare to Amazon, but I've actually found that there's a common thread of developing the tools, developing the resources, all to empower and enable the customer base that we're serving.
Ah, great, great. So for sellers that are unfamiliar, what's the vision of your team?
So maybe to give you a little bit of context, at Amazon, of course, we have a high bar for safety. There are a lot of regulations and requirements that we need to meet in order to make sure that at a federal level, at a state level, we are doing all the things we need to do to sell safe products. But even more importantly than that, we want to make sure that we're doing right by our customers by selling safe products on Amazon. And so that means that sometimes there are certain categories of products that require some controls to be in place to make sure that they're safe. And we know that in order for sellers to provide the necessary proof to show that their products are safe, it can be burdensome. There's documents that need to be submitted. There are idiosyncrasies within Amazon about how those documents are submitted. There's a wait time once the documents are submitted so that they can be reviewed by our teams. And so we know that it can be a burden. And so at our hearts, my team is focused on making sure that we provide the necessary tools and solutions, and we can go over that in a second, but we provide the necessary tools and solutions to try and streamline that burden as much as possible. So to provide a little bit more insight into what exactly those tools are, we have our trusted sources that we are able to source data from and then pair that with our AI models to map that back to the catalog. So basically, if a regulator, for example, has a database that has an ID number, we're able to get that information from the regulator's database, ingest that into Amazon's database, and then we are able to use our AI models, our machine learning models, to take that information and map it back to the catalog so that at an ASIN level, at a product level, we can show, oh, this ID number maps to this specific item, therefore we know this particular item is okay for sale. So that is one tool that we have in our arsenal of tools that we can use. Another one is image scanning. So if a seller creates a product listing and includes an image as part of that listing, we're actually able to use our image scanning technology to scrape the image for any sort of compliance information that may be listed there. So for example, if there's an ID number that's listed on the actual product image, we can scrape that information using our tool and mark that as, okay, this is related to this particular product in our catalog, and we can mark that as safe for sale. So those are just a couple of examples of the tools that we have where we're trying to basically extend our reach of how we can source the information ourselves so that a seller doesn't have to do that. So to give you maybe a real life illustration of a past initiative that my team worked on, a pesticide is an example of a category at Amazon that requires additional compliance information to show, like, yeah, this might be a pesticide, but it's actually safe, we're okay to sell it. Environmental Protection Agency requires that pesticides being sold have to have a valid EPA ID number. And so when we launched this initiative within my team, we were able to ingest the EPA's database of ID numbers. We're able to use our AI tools to map that back to our catalog so that we can say, like, oh, this EPA ID number correlates to this particular ASIN or SKU within the Amazon catalog. Therefore, we know that this SKU or ASIN is okay for sale. And so we were working behind the scenes basically so that our sellers wouldn't have to provide that proof of compliance, upload their documents. Like, we were able to get that EPA database directly so that we could go ahead and streamline that process for our sellers. And so Overarchingly, that is the goal of my team. We are developing these tools so that we can use these innovative solutions to alleviate the burden, take on more ourselves so that the seller doesn't have to have that on their backs.
That's great. I think many sellers are very pleased to hear that. And how does the compliance fast track fit into this?
Yeah, so at its core, our ability to source or act on behalf of our sellers is oftentimes limited to wherever there is a public database available. So EPA, for example, that was a public database that was available. So we were able to tap into that and use that information on behalf of our sellers. But that's not always going to be the case. In past conversations that we had with sellers, just trying to understand, like, what are the opportunities for improvement? How can we help you manage your compliance better? They definitely touted that it is a heavy burden for them. Like, it is something that in order to track down the documents, figure out how to upload them, figure out what format is needed, wait the amount of time that's necessary, it can be burdensome. I even have a friend actually who recently began selling on Amazon as an FBM seller. And so she's an engineer by background. She has a full-time job and she decided, like, this could be a nice side hustle that she's doing. And so she started her process, and as she found quickly, compliance is a big deal at Amazon. And so being able to, exactly like I said, being able to figure out what documents she needs to upload. She already knows her products are safe, but how exactly does she need to go about Amazonifying those products, making sure that they are right for our systems, has been a challenge for her. She even mentioned that there were times where she had to re-upload because the first time she tried it, there was some small thing that she missed. There's like a 5 to 8 business day wait, she said, for them to be reviewed. And so it's a very cumbersome process in general. Imagine if a seller has more than one product that they're selling, so they're having to do this for multiple ASINs. And imagine an FBM seller like my friend who has a full-time job. So she is just one person with 40 hours a week dedicated somewhere else, and this is something that she's trying to grow, and it can be frustrating. It can be tough to try and navigate that. And so to answer your original question, the Compliance Fast Track program is a way that we are trying to further our reach by providing a way for sellers to proactively opt in. So as I mentioned before, whenever we're able to use our tools to act on behalf of our sellers, there can be limitations if there's not a public database available to help facilitate that process. But with our new Compliance Fast Track program, we're actually collaborating with industry associations and certifying bodies so that we're now able to, for any products within scope for our program that are already certified with one of our partner organizations, we're now able to work with them to get that information directly. So if there's compliance information, we're able to just go directly to the organization. We don't have to ask the seller. They won't be outreached. Okay. So if you think back to my friend's use case, it's a perfect example of how rather than jumping through hoops and trying to figure out the process herself, had she been certified, it would have been just a straightforward, seamless process for her.
Interesting. So I think you briefly touched that, but I think it's relevant for people to understand where the data is coming from and which specific organizations you work with.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So currently we're working with JPMA, for example. That was actually the first organization that we collaborated with as part of the Compliance Fast Track program. So JPMA is the Juvenile Product Manufacturers Association, and we initiated our collaboration with them at the end of last year in 2023. And so just like I just described, we basically work with JPMA so that any JPMA certified products that are being sold on Amazon, we're just working directly with JPMA to ingest that information so that the JPMA sellers don't have to provide it for us. So from the seller's perspective, if you're a member with JPMA and if you have your product certified, that's all they have to do. Once they create their listing on Amazon, they're not having to come back and provide compliance documentation and basically show proof or justification that this product is safe. Because we are going directly to JPMA and getting that information on behalf of the seller, so the seller is basically able to kick back and relax, and have a more fast-tracked experience. It's actually been a very successful venture. JPMA has actually extended their certification to the Canada marketplace now, and so we've been able to collaborate with them so that we are now able to offer the Compliance Fast Track not just for their US certification, but for their Canada certification as well. So yeah, it's been very great to see how excited their sellers are about the program, and we've actually seen so much success from that we've added an additional 5 organizations to the Compliance Fast Track program. So given the success of JPMA, we're actually working with an additional 5 organizations. So it's UL Solutions, TUV Rhineland, Intertech ETL, the Arts and Creative Material Institute, Parents for Window Blind Safety. So of course, with JPMA, we were specifically in the juvenile industry. With these additional 5 organizations, we're definitely able to expand our reach by going into new industries like electronics, window coverings, arts and craft materials, and we actually have 65 categories now that are covered within this program. And so, as I said, it's a way for us to expand our reach, all in an effort to basically expand how many sellers we're able to impact by acting on their behalf once they opt into the Compliance Fast Track program.
No, that's great. I think that people definitely are excited to have the opportunity to sell at Amazon, being compliant, and do that in the fastest way possible.
Yeah,
so I think that the next question is like, how do they do it? How do they get started?
It's a great question. So for sellers who are not yet certified, the way to opt into the program is simply to go get the certification. If with one of the partner organizations, they see that there is a category that is something that they can opt into the certification, then we definitely encourage them to do that. We actually are in the process of developing our own Seller Central help page so that it will outline all the categories that are included in the Compliance Fast Track program, all the organizations that are included, and then we'll directly link to each of those organizations so that if a seller is interested in getting certified with any of these bodies, they can just go to that link and it'll take them directly so that they can have a straightforward way to get certified. And then if a seller already is certified, if their products already are certified with any of the in-scope categories, then it's even more streamlined and straightforward because they don't have to do anything. We are going directly to those organizations, so there's no extra steps that need to be taken at that point. We're working directly with the ULs and the Intertechs to source that data, get it into our system, and mark the specific products as safe for sale, and the seller can just kick back and relax and grow their business.
Great, great. So what is there is a twofold question here, like what's the cost for that to go through the program?
Sure.
And also if they see that there are opportunities for improvement, how do they can provide improvement points for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So from our end, there is no cost. This is a service that we want to make sure we're providing to our sellers just because we have customer obsession here at Amazon and we know that there was a burdensome process, and this is our effort to try and alleviate that burden. There will be a cost associated for the most part to partner with these organizations and get certified with these organizations. So as I said, if a seller is able to go on our Seller Central help page and use that link to go directly to the partner organization site, they'll be able to get more information on what applications are necessary, what the cost is, the specific steps. They'll be able to find all that information with each of our partner organizations. But beyond that, there's no cost to opt into this. Okay. So definitely hoping that this is something that we'll see continue to grow and continue to positively impact our sellers. In terms of how to troubleshoot and how we're streamlining that process, right now as part of Accelerate, we do have a specific inbox that my team is using to source any sort of questions or comments or complaints. If there's positive feedback, if someone just wants to say your program is awesome, then we love to hear that as well. But we do have a specific inbox that we're using. So as we kind of launch this, and there'll be a link to that inbox, I'm sure, from your team as well, sellers can definitely contact us through that way. Okay. Obviously, we want a scalable and bigger and kind of more streamlined way for a seller to reach out to us. So that's definitely something that's part of our strategy, is how can we make sure that we're not only communicating this well so that we're getting the word out to sellers that, hey, if you are certified or even if you're not certified, this is something that you can opt into. So we're definitely actively looking for ways to get that information out there, but also are looking for ways to make sure that sellers can then come back to us and let us know how the process is going if they have any issues or questions.
That's perfect. And probably, like, with your experience, you've seen many cases, right? Is there any best practice that you can, either like on fast track or in general compliance issues that you can like provide to sellers?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I would say the best practice really in our case is opting in. You know, if you're able to just take that step to opt into the program, then that is really what we need to work directly with those organizations. If a seller is not interested in opting in for whatever reason, or at the moment can't necessarily do a full-fledged certification, like I said earlier, my team is still focused on acting on behalf of sellers as much as possible. So what helps us do that on the seller's perspective is making sure your listings are robust. That is part of the information that our machine learning and AI tools are able to use to map back to these public databases. So if we're working with an EPA, for example, but so many aspects of the listing are missing from a seller's perspective, it makes it quite difficult for us to make that mapping and make that link. So from a seller's perspective, even if you're not able to opt in for whatever reason to the Compliance Fast Track program, if they're able to have a very robust listing that includes all the details, that really enables us to act on their behalf because that, like I said, that really helps our models to find a strong match.
Interesting. You mentioned like probably the word that everybody's talking about, that is AI. So how do you see like the future of AI as we think about compliance? Okay.
So this is just the start for the type of innovation that we're doing on my team. So from a seller's perspective, we're definitely going to try to continue pushing the envelope, looking for ways that we can try and innovate on behalf of our sellers. That is our true north. That is what our entire focus is doing. Is to find ways that we can streamline the seller experience and do it ourselves so that the sellers don't have to. From an industry perspective, like looking at it from a broader scale, these AI tools are enabling us to move more quickly. That is exactly what it's doing. That's the name of our program, Compliance Fast Track. And so I think in the future, we'll probably see that wait times are being cut down, processing times are going down, and that's because these tools are enabling us to move more quickly. Might even see something closer to real time in terms of confirming if something is compliant. So definitely something that I'm sure lots of different organizations in the industry are looking towards, and absolutely something that my team is looking towards as well.
No, great. Considering you're talking about the future, let's like double click on that one. So what is your like team is working on, features, challenges that you see coming up next?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, our true north is always going to be how can we try and enable compliance as much as possible ourselves so that the seller doesn't have to do it. And so we'll continue to focus on that. We'll continue to try and leverage the resources that we have behind us here at Amazon with the innovative tools and solutions that our teams are coming up with. And we're always going to do that from the lens of, okay, how can we take this awesome new feature or awesome new tool and guide it so that we can act on behalf of our sellers. And so that's definitely going to continue to be our focus. We'll have to see you at next year's Accelerate to tell you what new launches we have coming out. But like I said, definitely something that is at our core.
Okay, great. I appreciate the time. I thought it was very, very productive and got the sellers what they need to be able to be compliant as they sell at Amazon in a very efficient way. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.